Hi everybody, this is Rizwan and welcome to Chats with Seshadri. I'm delighted to be joined by Sudharshana Seshadri, I hope I pronounced that correctly, who is Associate VP of Clinical Mass Spectrometry at Agilent. We had a press conference, a virtual press conference with Agilent, talking about their launches. So Sudharshana is going to kindly talk about those today with me, but also talk about a few other things as well. So Sudharshana, first of all, lovely to see you. I hope you're well.
Same here, Riz. It's great to see you, and it's too bad we're not getting to do this face to face, huh? Like we did last year in Atlanta.
Yeah, I know. Last time we were sitting
Yeah.
over a dinner table talking about
Yeah,
cricket. How different this is, eh?
exactly. Cricket and Game of Thrones. Let's not forget Game of
Yeah,
Thrones.
exactly. Well, let's not go into the last episode, otherwise everyone will start thinking what our opinions are. So we'll move on quickly, though. But
Yep.
before we start talking about the launches that you announced today at the
Yeah.
virtual press conference, the first question I'd like to ask, and which obviously everybody, well, I'm sure is asking you anyway, is how has COVID-19 had an impact in terms of the clinical diagnostic business at Agilent, both in terms of your relations with customers, and also internally, and finally, obviously looking at maybe opportunities for the business as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a great question. And listen, I mean, I think I mentioned this when we kicked off my section during the press conference. It's really sort of a humbling and energizing time to be leading a clinical business, during this pandemic, and what a changed world we're in, right? And I think it certainly comes down to how important accurate diagnostic results are
Yeah.
and the human impact of that. And to me, and I think for those that are involved in this particular market space, it's evident that robust and dependable technology is more critical than ever, right? So, that's how we're keeping things in mind as we move forward. But from an opportunity perspective, Riz, I think, I'll give you an example. I spoke a lot about China today. Given a key launch there that I'll go into in a bit. In China, there's actually a formation of the Public Health Commission of People's Republic of China, where there's going to be a heck of a lot more focus on disease prevention and public health in general, right? So what we're going to see is an added investments in areas like precision medicine, in areas like clinical diagnostic platforms and technologies, and therapeutic development. And in all of these areas, Mass Spec has, and it's going to continue to play an extremely important role. And I believe that Agilent's value and the value that we provide to customers is the robust, reliable platforms that they've come to gotten used to experiencing with us, right? And I think leveraging that for the clinical diagnostic space, I believe we're going to be solving a lot of problems for them in the coming years.
Okay, well, thank you. Right, so moving on to the launches announced today.
Yeah.
So tell me more about what was announced today, because obviously not everyone was lucky enough to listen to you this morning.
I know.
So tell me more about what you announced today.
Yeah, so happy to do that, Riz. So today I was fortunate to spend time with all of you guys to actually go through how Agilent is viewing the clinical mass spec opportunity, right? So first off, just to set the base, within the segmentation of clinical mass spec, triple quadruple has played a pretty important role, and we believe that it's going to continue to play an extremely important role moving forward. We're seeing it grow rapidly. We're, seeing more clinical labs adopting it. And that primarily comes down to the accuracy and the sensitivity of the instrument combined with the flexibility, right? And in addition to that, you heard me talk a lot about what these operators are requiring, which is these are med techs. They need easy to use, robust instrumentation that doesn't go down, and they need to feel confident about the results that they're being enabled. So I was really happy to talk about two specific launches with all of you today. The first one was our Infinity II Clinical Edition K6460S, which is a US FDA Class 1 registered device.
Right.
We're positioning it for lab developed tests here in the United States, and for those that are seeking to add the flexibility of mass spec for their multiplex, multi-analyte assays. The great thing about this system is we're bringing together the industry-leading Infinity II 1260 instrument along with our time-tested, rock-solid 6460 platform. And the Mass Hunter software that's a wraparound to this is easy to use, intuitive. We've heard this time and time again from customers that, it allows them to get up and going, get to their results in a confident, efficient manner.
Right.
So that was the first piece of information that we talked about today. The second was our entry into the China market.
Right.
With our Class 2 LCMS device. And in China, it's a little bit different than the United States because the product there is considered a Class 2 by the NMPA, the regulatory agency that we worked with. And we've gotten approved for our LCMS to be used in some key assays like hormones, vitamins, therapeutic drug monitoring.
Right.
So we're really enthusiastic and excited about both of these launches.
Fantastic. All right, cool. So 2 questions in related to those then.
Yeah.
On a very basic level, in terms of availability, when will they be available?
Both products in US and China, they're orderable today. And
right, okay.
and in fact, the shipments for the US product, the K6460S, we're going to begin shipments later in the summer. So for those of you that are interested in learning more, please get in touch with us, and a lot more information available on our website.
Right, okay. And then obviously relating back to the initial question we started the conversation with, what impact do they have in terms of helping people with COVID-19 research?
That's a really good question, Riz. And, and again, what I would do is, and Mass Spec, I think, if we talk about purely the research end of it, I think in terms of vaccine therapy development, Mass Spec has and will continue to have a huge impact. But in terms of the diagnostics itself, I'd like to keep it to the problems that we're solving with this particular system, the K6460S. I think I mentioned during a press conference that the one thing that we hear again and again from lab managers is the lack of experienced medtechs, right? People that have the credentials, that have the right credentials to be a medtech. And in addition to that, the turnover rate is really high in that industry. So when we thought about the problem that we needed to solve here, which was how do we make this as simple, easy to use, and get them the instrument that gets them up and running? And so with this K6460S, the Class 1 system in the US, for example, it's one system. It's the liquid chromatography and the Mass Spec that's been pre-configured and tested for the labs prior to them getting it. So when it leaves the factory, it's one system that's been tested. And once it's implemented, you can have the confidence that's going to get up and running as quickly as possible, right? The second part of it, and I talked about Mass Hunter software being really intuitive and easy to use. I'll give you a really good example of what I mean by that. There is an application called Study Manager. Right. And that is part of every, the software, part of every Mass Hunter software. And it allows the medtech to go in, select the pre-configured sample selection, all the way to reporting within basically 5 clicks. And so what that does is, again, it reduces, a huge amount of complexity and takes that away. It's all about reducing complexity and increasing the ease of use for the Mass Spec. So for those labs that are seeking to adopt it in the COVID context, for the labs that are looking to expand on their capabilities by adding LCMS workflows, these are some of the reasons why I think choosing Agilent is a great way to go.
Okay, well that leads on nicely to my final question, and I think you've sort of touched on it anyway in your answer there.
Yeah.
But where do you see the trends within Mass Spec, particularly in the clinical diagnostic space, not just in the next 12 months, but further down the line? As we were discussing before we started this interview, every ASMS there's always a trend that all the manufacturers are sort of all launching at the same time, whether it's a triple quad or they're doing the same, they're all doing software upgrades, or they're all doing applications for biopharma.
Right.
Obviously, this year's been slightly different because there isn't been one physical event. So where do you see the trends going forward now for Mass Spec?
For clinical Mass Spec.
For clinical Mass Spec.
So I want to touch on a couple of things, and so I want to deconstruct that a little bit. One is on the application focus of it. So let's talk about that, right? I talked a lot about the fact that triple quads have been used in the clinical lab for some time now. They're gold standard for a lot of assays. But there are several of our own customers that are really deep in the translational space, right? The folks that are using it for system biology, looking at bringing the information like proteomics and metabolomics closer and closer to the clinic. And we're starting to see that almost become a reality at this point. And so I think this is a really important trend that we should really continue, and Agilent's continuing to really keep an eye on and be focused on, and collaborating and taking insights to draw upon our own workflows. Is the power of system biology on precision medicine, and Mass Spec is going to continue to really play a humongous part in that overall paradigm.
Right.
The second thing is, it's what I kind of ended on in the last part of it. We're going to continue to see the move to make this as routine and as simple to use as possible. It's a powerful platform, but it's only as powerful as the results that you get out of it, right? So I think making it as simple and easy to use as possible is something that you're going to continue to see the trend. And I think Monty Benfield, the GMVP of our Mass Spec division, I think he touched on this as well when he talked about the trends for the next 10 years. So I would say specifically from a clinical perspective, Riz, those are the two things that I would like to leave you with.
Brilliant. All right. Well, look, thank you very much for that, Sudharshana. I mean, I hope everyone found that useful. Thank you very much for your time.
Absolutely.
Everyone who is watching this, if you'd like to know more, then please have a look at the post above the video, which will have the links to the press releases about the products that were spoken about today. If you'd like to ask Sudharshana questions herself about the products or relate to anything around clinical mass spec, then please leave comments in the comment box. I'm sure she'll be happy to answer them. So all that's left for me to say, Sudharshana, thank you very much. Please look after yourself. To all those viewing, as always, stay safe, stay well, and I'll see you soon. Take care.